Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Welcome back to It's Just Coffee and welcome back to our World of Coffee Dubai special. You've already heard some of the amazing conversations we've had, like our chat with Wilfred Lemastis Jr., the farmer behind the world's most expensive coffee. And we chatted with the World Barista Champion, Mikhail Jasin, but we're just getting started. For the next 2 weeks, we're doubling down, double the caffeine, double the podcast. We're dropping 4 new episodes each week, Tuesday to Friday. More deep dives, more behind-the-scenes moments, and more of the world's best coffee minds, all straight from Dubai. So grab a coffee, settle in, and get ready for another episode of It's Just Coffee. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, ready to roll. Let's go. All right, welcome back to the It's Just Coffee podcast, everyone. This is a podcast I've been trying to get for years. I think we can both admit that.
Yeah.
I've, for whatever reason, you were living in Canberra, then Sydney, and then timing just didn't align. I've been trying very hard for years to get this interview. And I finally got it. So, yeah, thank you so much. Welcome to Sam Corra from Honor Coffee and Nucleus Coffee, do you say? So what's your title of both of those? Just coming a little bit closer to the mic.
Yeah, sure. So I still work for Honor. I've been with the team for a long time, 16 plus years, I believe, transitioning from assistant roaster, head roaster, director of coffee in more recent years, which I still hold that position. It's focusing on our coffee offering, our program, and making things interesting to continue to do what has made Honor who we are today. And then as we progressed through it, I also started to work more on Nucleus Coffee Tools, and I sit as the general manager of that business as well.
We were just talking about on the way here AI chatbots, and it's like it started from a discussion I had with Hidenori Ozaki this morning, and if you don't mind talking about
of course.
You're kind of training AI to help your business already. So we were talking with Hidenori about how you can get a lot of easy, simple, mundane questions that people don't necessarily want to ask you either in person. Yep. It can be solved by these chatbots, and it's a really good thing. Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, of course. So one thing we realized is one of the products we make is the Link Sample Roaster. And in that product itself, although we try and make the process really simple, there's still some complexities to roasting and operating it that some users may miss. And what we were finding is we're a very small team. Nucleus is technically a team of 4.5 people. And we were finding that in order for the customers to have a good experience, we're getting a lot of interaction and question asking, which could simply be solved through a simple algorithm or chatbot-like program. So our marketing director, Jordan Montgomery, worked on training a chatbot to answer the technical questions as well as the simple questions. And what we've found is just the efficiency that we've managed to save by adding ongoing and live support. So you don't have to wait for a ticket system where you would submit a concern or a complaint or a question and, have 72 hours before someone responds. You get instantaneous feedback. And
how good is the feedback?
Amazing. So what you can do with the feedback is you can coach it, train it, tune it to be able to answer in a certain way, a certain tone, certain level of humor, as well as how you feed it with the information. So we've been writing a lot of documents on roasting and the link, and it's able to answer questions somewhat better than me. If my brain's not functioning, haven't had a coffee, this thing's always switched on. So it's been a fantastic asset to that particular product.
You've got me thinking now. Let's stay on the Link for a second. So the Link is a small roaster that can roast up to how many grams of coffee?
Variable batch size between 50 grams and 100 grams.
So quite small, but that's a really good thing. So you can obviously do sample roasting, but you've had people win the World Brewers Cup using the Link roaster. So is it 2 now? So you had Martin, and then was it Matt Winton as well?
Yep. So the original concept and how the Link birthed in that partnership was from our campaign in 2021 with Matt Winton. Idea is I was traveling, looking for a great roaster that was affordable, but also could do the style of roast that I was looking for. I really loved a drum roast expression for sweetness and body, and found that most fluid beds didn't quite capture that. What I was intrigued by is the work that Cafe Logic were doing over in New Zealand, and when they were in a startup or Kickstarter phase. And I saw a lot of potential in that machine, and I kind of wrote them a pitch. I was like, look, I love what your roaster does. I believe we can utilize it, customize it, and tweak some of the firmware, the controls to have a more commercial application that can allow this roaster to be served coffee in even the top setting. I said, if you trust me, I'm going to find a roaster who will trust me to take this technology, prepare some of the coffees, and use it on the world stage. And our goal was to see what we could do, and we were surprised that we had a win there, and then most recently with Martin as well.
So, yeah, but what's interesting about it is that there's a lot of different roast profiles that come with it, right?
Yep.
So you can kind of unwrap it, not have to figure out how to roast over months at a time. You can kind of have the success immediately out of the box.
Yeah, correct.
So, which kind of means that, okay, if you're an ambitious, industrious, or even just a home enthusiast, you could buy a Link roaster from you guys. And then we were talking to Coulter Road yesterday. He's starting like what he calls a brokerage for Panamanian coffee. So you can buy a kilo brick from him of a few different coffees as well. You could have a little business now where like you're a world-class coffee roaster with world-class coffee pretty effectively.
Yeah.
So is that the intention of this?
Look, I think it's about diversifying the way in which you can prepare coffee. The original goal was bringing technology to producing countries. One of the biggest problems I solved was we're not really making equipment that is addressing all areas of the industry. And as we evolve with technology, understanding, and it's becoming better, these really should improve in the areas that need it the most. And if we leave a big gap that they're not able to access that, then we're really missing out on how we progress our coffee forward. Because if the people producing the coffee and the fermentations and the agricultural side don't have the access to that, then we're missing out. So it was designed for that purpose. From that, then we saw the second benefit that once they were able to take control of their sample roasting, we started seeing the benefits through competitions, cafes, or we even run a program which is Green to Cup, where we run a complete coffee bar with no coffee roasted. People come in, they roast to their order, to their taste, how they want it, and it really evolves the way in which coffee service can go. So to your question, yes, super possible for anyone to source great coffee, use this roaster to get a fair and honest expression, and allow you to have the trust of algorithms, database, profile sourcing in order to get expressions that you can start on, and if you wish, also customize as well.
Well, coffee's so artisanal. Like a lot of people would view it as artisanal, but I really love the technology wave that's coming in, the new discoveries that we're making along the way as well. Like, you know, you've done the things like the Paragon.
Yep.
And that's the extract chilling. It's pretty astounding how effective it is, like, especially when you smell a coffee. You know, I just had Simon Gawthron on talking about Apex and, you know, how water's come a long way. Now we're doing it with roasting, and there's so many different things like that are revolutionizing the industry entirely. If I'm to go back though, you guys at Honor Coffee are responsible for blowing my brains over years and years and years. I want to talk about like the top 3 Honor coffees of all time.
Yeah, all right.
And see, I'll give my ranking and you give your ranking. Number 1, Violet and Blueberry Blend. It was a milk roast coffee that literally tasted like blueberries and violet. And it's probably the best Honor coffee of all time, in my opinion. Yeah. Number 2, Banoffee Pie. Like very similar. It was like that. Damn, these guys are changing the game with milk. Just unbelievable coffees and creative blends that have influenced what I do today. Yeah. Oh gosh, what's number 3? This is a tough one. Finca Deborah Symmetry. Espresso. Yeah.
Beautiful coffee.
Yeah, which is a carbonic maceration. You know, this all sounds very technical, but long story short, these are 3 amazing coffees. Yeah. Over to you. Your top 3.
Top 3. If I'm being biased, the best coffee still to this date that I've ever had that we've managed to get our hands on is, again, a Finca Deborah coffee. It was the coffee that I competed with in 2017. It was a unique lot that myself, Sash, and Hugh went to Panama and created. And also Hugh Kelly served that same coffee lot as I did for his World Championship campaign that year in Seoul. So that's got to be the number 1. Still to this day, why you've never seen me compete again is I haven't found a coffee that spoke to my deep inner soul as much as that coffee.
And I got to try that. That was a brilliant coffee.
Yeah, so that was amazing. I think that another coffee, as you said, the flavors of autumn, which are a lot of those coffees that you're talking about, violets and blueberry, strawberry, rose. I think we had peach and lavender or something like that. To me, that was really the fun side of like Honor Coffee and experimenting with naturally fermented coffees and how we can arrange it and look at coffee differently. Like if we want to bring excitement and a way in which consumers can interact with coffee, we need to make it approachable. We can come with technical names, processing, hours of details, but to the general consumer, the main thing they're focusing on is the sensory experience. So we wanted to bring things which were fun, things which were playful. They're serious specialty coffees, but the names entice you, ask you the question, I want to try it. And the most obvious thing is, how do we relate that to the taste? And it actually translates for someone who's not a coffee expert. Wow, I taste the blueberry or the violet or whatever quality went into it. So it really started the exploration. It was a very fun time for us and our coffee progression as well.
So you're saying just that category is number 2? Or?
Honestly, those whole range is pretty nice. I think that all the flavor design coffees that we did were a lot of fun.
Potpourri, the filter blend of that. See, I remember this all probably better than you do.
Citrus bomb, toffee apple. We had a few ones that were kicking around.
And last one, number 3.
Number 3, I'm always a sucker for washed coffees. One of the most polarizing washed coffees I've ever had was likely something from Bambito Estate. I really like what Priscilla and Ivan do. And in 2021, I was lucky enough to be one of their first ever geisha purchasing customers. And that year we managed to buy a lot. I think we bought their entire production. And it was a coffee that we stumbled across. We knew about them, and it was just a mind-blowing. And it wasn't so surprising that that year, a geisha wash from them managed to go and win the Best of Panama. So I would have to say in 2021, that for me was something that just really stuck with me. As you can see, most of the coffees I gravitate with that impress me are, generally speaking, the washed coffees because they're naked, raw, and hard oats variety terroir and very exposed with the country conditions.
When you're around coffees like this, and you deal with world-class coffee arguably more than anyone on the planet, getting to travel and working with it at the roastery in previous years. You live in France now, by the way. I don't know if that's public information, but you're chilling out in France. Do you ever kind of need to reset or take time away to kind of appreciate those things more? Like one strategy I have is I don't have brewing gear at my house. I've got a kettle. I make instant coffee at home, often especially instant to be fair, but like I want to have a degree of separation. How do you because it's easy to become numb to it when you're working with it all day, every day. Yeah. How do you stay excited?
I think this is one of those things that coffee is so exciting because there's such diversity in it. I think that one thing that I like to do, again, most of the tasting and that I'll do is in my house, is looking for what's new. As I said, it's easy to be impressed by coffee countries, varieties, processes, which are known. We celebrate them, they're excellent. But sometimes when you try something that you don't expect to be as impressive, that's something that sticks with you and really blows your mind and you're absolutely wow. I think an experience I had recently was traveling to Bali. In Australia, we're familiar with Indonesian coffees, but what I realized is some of the best coffees in Indonesia are consumed locally. And I'd never had a Balinese coffee of the quality that I was able to access in 5 or 6 different roasters. And that to me was wow, this is amazing when you try something you don't expect and it really just takes a step back. In some ways, even if it's a more humble coffee, I'm more impressed when a humble coffee speaks to me than something I expect, because expectations put a limit that I expect it to be this good. When a coffee you have no expectation over and outdoes your expectation, it's really one of those special moments. So
I'll tell you an example I've had at this show today and yesterday was trying coffee, Saudi-grown coffee.
Yep.
And obviously we interviewed someone from the Saudi coffee company yesterday and got some good information there, but that's one example of a coffee origin that probably wouldn't be, super high on people's radar, let's just say. But
I don't think anyone's radar.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think they are going to be capable of doing what producers like De Terra have done in Brazil. I think they predominantly get a lot of flavor through fermentation over there. They're processing experts. And in Saudi Arabia, they've got coffee growing at altitudes of 2,000 meters plus. They're going to be producing some seriously fire coffee in the next years. They've got the money, and I've said this a couple of times over the last few days. It's easy to throw money at things, but they've got the determination. So, have you tried some of this?
I roasted some before. Today, I had someone bring some Saudi coffee. I'd have to say the first time I've ever roasted Saudi Arabian coffee. Yeah. And it was an experience. I think that even today, roasting Nepalese coffee, what's amazing about these shows is you're exposed to things that you don't see. you didn't know or you haven't had the opportunity to taste. And I think it shifts perspective. I think to keep coffee fresh, it's about introducing not just the key, 16 countries in the coffee belt that we look at, but what else is out there?
Yeah.
What's amazing? And I think that those experiences and bringing those are unique because you see something you never tried, it sparks interest originally, and it gives you originality in your cafe service.
And let's look at some of the coffee origins that have popped up in the last 5 years, for example. You guys have done good work in Malaysia with producing Liberica, which Hugh Kelly used in the Worlds one time. We actually got to try some coffee with Sash from Fiji, some Fijian wild Liberica, which was really interesting. Even Australia is now producing specialty grade coffee, and there's more and more popping up. Are there any that I've missed that you'd give a highlight here?
I think that, it's not so much new, but I've always been impressed with some of the work that's happening in Myanmar. Like, I know it's starting there. It's starting to become more popular. It's very exciting. I got to try a coffee from Congo the other day, which was unique and different and quite amazing. You're looking at coffees from Vietnam, Philippines, and celebrating those are really exciting. And going as far as countries which are new to coffee, like China. I don't know if you get around some of the Yunnan, but some of the
excellent
coffees that are coming out, and they're getting amazing world-class producers. And you're seeing coffees that really are just, I guess, shifting the category of what we would look for. So there's always new ones coming out. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out of the Oriental or Asian continents that are progressing it beyond just this as a commodity grade coffee. We're focusing and looking at it as specialty. Another thing which I found recently working with Edgard of Latitude is Amazon Robusta or Canaphoras. And the amount of understanding that they have in Canaphora, the different clones and the projects which are working on, absolutely mind-blowing. I was introduced to that project through my wife, who works in coffee as well. And to me, a lot of people overlook Canaphora. They're not super into seeing it as a specialty. So what is Canaphora? So Robusta-based coffee is what we would generally call it. And there's a project in the Amazon where they're focusing on level of fermentation, 40 different clones, how you pollinate, because you need different clones to pollinate different clones. And the effort and the work going into that was truly amazing. When I get home, I've got about 50 samples to catalogue. We don't just work with Arabica coffee, but I want to understand how I can catalogue and understand this species more so as it becomes more prevalent, and hopefully we see more specialty grades or qualities that can work well, that we understand how to get the best out of it. Because the thing about it, if we approach it just like Arabica, we maybe are missing out on the purpose. Maybe, yes, it's not the taste that we want. But if you think about those coffees differently, same thing with Liberica, and you apply a fermentation or a processing or a roast technique that works for it, technically we can find experiences that really diversify the coffee industry. You have a look at wine, you have so many different grapes and styles and that which is celebrated, but in coffee, there's over 133 different species known and probably more. We're celebrating maybe 2, 3, 4. So there's a massive industry that has progression.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about before we go is that we obviously interviewed Sasha a few weeks ago. One of the things that he said, and I kind of knew this a little bit through watching The Coffee Man, but he elaborated on further in our podcast, was that he was doing this cupping one time and he kind of explained how a lot of the staff at that time were disinterested in what he'd done because really he was trying to get people to follow his dream, but they weren't of the same opinion. And so he kind of hit the reset button, sold a bunch of his businesses and cafes that he had at the time and started again. Yeah. And one of the key things he said was that you were the only person that was hanging around with him back at the time.
Yeah.
Helped him clean up and then, I got to say, I don't know if Honor Coffee's success happens without you because the level of roasting that you do for all these champions and just it's changed my career. Like you think of things like raspberry candy have changed so many people's lives.
Yeah.
And the impact that's had on the industry, I think one thing that's been really unfair in the last couple of years, I think, is how Sasha's kind of been treated, by some of the coffee public. And but I think people forget the contribution that he's made. And things like that have made a massive influence and you've had a massive part of. So what's it been like working together from the ground up to start this?
Yeah, of course. Look, I think part of the success of Honor Coffee is not one person's dream, but the collective minds of people who specialize and understand certain areas and excel. If you look at the DNA of the company, what's unique is we have some very well-known coffee individuals. And the tendency with coffee individuals is once they become successful, they move on and they do their own things. One thing that we've had in honor, which is amazing, is the ability to retain talent. And by retaining that talent together, we're stronger. And I think that what we realize is we have key skill sets that make us better at certain areas that can really contribute than others. For me, I found a passion and interest in roasting, coffee choice, and understanding, which I could really drive and work on. So by having people in those key areas, and your Hugh Kellys and your Matt Lewins, and filtering down to some of the newer staff, we have the ability that we can really understand and focus on what we do well. And instead of us starting a business where we might excel at one thing but not be very good at another. When it comes to working with Sash, it's one of those things that we commonly align, but we often disagree. I think that disagreement is healthy in business because most of the time when we're completely opposed, you listen to someone else's perspective and it gives you a complete picture of where to approach the next step rather than a single mind
you don't
maybe
want a bunch
thinking
of yes
it
men
in one way.
in your circle.
I think so. I think that why we work together is we're yin and yang. I think that often we behave very differently. We're very different people. As you see, it's taken me, or you, many years to have me on this. I'm pretty introverted. I prefer to sit in the shadows and just get the work done, see the success and others succeed. Me, myself, I don't want the spotlight. I just want to do what I do and go back to focusing on how I can contribute and leave coffee in a better place than when I started. So there's different areas, different personalities and different mindset. And I think that focusing on that and what you can achieve together and difference of opinion is the key for why we have worked together for so long.
One of the biggest audiences, I guess, that audience groups that listens to this podcast is homebrewers.
Yep.
And one thing I'd love to ask you, because there's not really anyone more qualified to answer this question. What are the top 3 things that homebrewers, whether they're using espresso machines or making filter coffee, what are the 3 biggest things that you would do to improve your coffee, or just if you're starting, to have success brewing coffee at home?
Yeah, of course. I think that the key one for me is understanding which variables you want to play with.
Yeah.
I think if you play with everything and you listen to too much of influence from others who are talking on specific machinery or water or grinders or brewing devices, potentially you can get lost. There's so much choice. When I was competing and learning coffee, because again, before I started competing, we were not a great company for filter coffee. I realized that, and the only way to get better is get feedback. And I generally found that our feedback loop was shaped through competition. But in doing that, I set a clear goal that let's focus on what are constants and what are variables. For me, when it comes to filter coffee, I still haven't changed my grind setting since 2017. I still brew the same way. I believe in the same brewing devices, which are rather simple. The things that I manipulate, which I can find for me, I understand, is water temperature.
Water temperature?
Yeah.
So that's one?
Yeah. I also regulate the brewing cone to some degree, depending on the coffees that I'd be working on. Understanding thermodynamics and how extraction works. Metal maybe heats up for 2/3 of or 60% of the brew and then dissipates. Plastic's a good all-rounder for certain brew style. Ceramic is going to constantly have the brew bed increase throughout the process. So understanding how the roast profile and the brewing cone will impact will make a difference for the home brewers. Another thing is just kind of explore and try. I keep the same recipe, but other things I've been working on is little needling tools before brewing to improve it.
What does that do?
I find it's one of those things that you saw with what Martin was doing with his brewers routine, is we're studying it and trying to understand it. Something about how it destatifies or shifts the coffee in the brew bed. But what we notice is from a taste perspective, it's pretty obvious that it will improve the taste. And I would say as much as 15 to 20% by doing a small needling.
By just needling your coffee bed.
And again, we're focusing on distribution in espresso. We don't really focus on brewing, but...
So I can improve my coffee quality by 15 to 20% by just getting it, getting the Wolf... waste distribution tool and
something that will do that and play around. Again, play around with it and see it for yourself. We've noticed it. Baristas have noticed it. Others outside of myself have noticed it. So I believe there's something there.
Yeah.
It's something that even we believe in so much that even with Martin, we've been working on a tool that focuses on different coating needles, different lengths, different, shapes that can potentially be used in the future to improve the way in which we do filter coffee without changing anything that we're currently doing. It's just focusing on other steps and areas.
We're just about out of time, but the last thing I'll ask you is, what would you like the listeners to this podcast to know? If there's one thing that, you don't do podcasts much. I don't know if you've ever done one ever, have you?
I've done one. One and that's it.
Okay, right. So what's one thing you would like to leave the listener knowing before you go?
One thing, I think that if I was to say it in coffee, I think what we need to do more is get together and talk an open opinion. I think that we have a lot of voices that speak their idea of coffee with certainty and maybe a closed mind approach. I think that to push coffee forward, we need to have a lot of people speaking, but we also need to have a lot of people listening.
So like the yin and yang effect with you and
Yeah,
Tasha.
I think so, because one thing that you realize is when you get minds to coffee together, and even if we disagree, and disagreement is sometimes healthy, from that disagreement you can shape new ideas, new directions, and see a different perspective. I think that that's the best way, because sometimes the most successful things that you will do are completely opposite to what you may have expected that the direction should take. So my advice would be listen, talk, get together and contribute. You drop the barriers, share appreciation, don't instantly disregard someone's work or what someone's doing.
And don't be a jerk, of course.
Essentially, but not so much. It's more about understand perspective. You can disagree and that's healthy. Everyone has their own opinion. There's no right or wrong way to do coffee. It's just your truth and what you believe. And I think if we have that mindset, respect people, respect what they do, regardless of skill set or contribution, coffee will progress in a healthy and positive space to where I think I would like to see it.
Love that answer. Well, we're just about to wrap up. Sponsor of this podcast is Eco Barista. So if you want to get some Eco Barista at your cafe, www.ecobarista.com.au, 15% off your first order. Would you believe it? But thank you so much, Sam Corra.
Hey, Kirk, thank you so much.
We'll get together again, hopefully for a longer podcast. But wonderful. I'm extremely grateful. And I don't think there's anyone that's I've wanted so bad. There's only actually one person that's ever said no entirely to coming on the podcast, so I won't reveal their identity. But unless you say no, I'm like Dumb and Dumber. Jim Carrey. So there's a chance. So
look, it's a pleasure to be here and speak. And as I said, for me, I've got a lot that I want to share in terms of just getting together and progressing it. So I think it's the right time to speak. As much as I want to be in the shadows, I realise in order to hopefully put some positivity in the industry and make sure that we're all collaborative, that we can share and talk, and I'm happy to talk. So
I feel so good. All right, on that note, let's leave it there. Thank you for watching again the It's Just Coffee podcast. I'm Kirk Pearson. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Done.
Perfect.
Oh.